Greetings from the Lilypad Village on the plain of Bloomburrow, where your otter creatures you control have prowess. My name is John from the MTG Thoughtcast, and this is Pack It In, where we're going to be opening up a booster pack and getting as many cards as we can into your commander decks. Today we have this play booster of Bloomburrow. Bloomburrow, the brand new set from Magic the Gathering, our favorite card game, and mine, and yours, and all of us. You know, that was almost trying to be an intro. If you've never seen before, this show kind of goes unscripted from time to time, and me trying to make an intro is why Joseph does this, and I don't. But here we are with our animal friends. So the brand new set here is all focused on animals. We've got otters, we've got raccoons, we've got frogs, we've got bats, no humans of any capacity, and in fact, anyone who does make their way to this world who is not naturally an inhabitant gets turned into an animal creature, as showcased with the set's main planeswalker, Ral. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what much else there is to say about a set like this here. Really, if you're an animal enjoyer, you're going to be enjoying a lot of the stuff that is in this pack here. So we should dive in right away and get started on some of these. Firstly, a reprint card, a Runaway Together. 1 and a blue for an instant. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by different players. Return those creatures to their owner's hands. This is a very interesting kind of card because you can get some very big value off of, especially for Commander, being able to choose 2 different players, not necessarily yourself. You can just bounce 2 things of theirs. I mean, technically speaking, it is unsummoned twice on the same card per se, but the flexibility here is that you can remove something away from your opponent, or remove something away from multiples of your opponents, or bounce something from an opponent and save something of yours. So it's a very flexible card, especially as an instant. Not the most powerful thing in the world, but not a bad card altogether. Oh, what is this word? Pillated Provisioner. I was gonna make a joke, I'm not doing it. 4 and a white for a 3/4 Bird Scout with flying. When it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature without flying. Target creature you control without flying. So the birds of this set, their whole idea is that they're the ones with flying, and they want you to be playing alongside other things that don't have flying. It's very strange, sort of like deck building idea, because your flyers are going to be the ones getting in there for combat damage, and then your ground force that they are then boosting is helping either stabilize you or doing other effects and abilities like that. It's neat. It's a very interesting take on how to do the blue-white flyers deck especially. I wouldn't call myself a big fan of it, but it's very interesting. Roughshod Duo. This is a cool card that's part of a little mini cycle, I suppose, that is part of this set. They're all a pair of the cards, all called duos. They've showcased 2 of the assorted animals that are featured amongst this set, and typically speaking, the cards themselves kind of share overlapped abilities between what the 2 groups have sort of in common or what they're trying to do together. So in our case here, is a 3/2 for a mouse raccoon with trample that whenever you expend 4, target creature you control gets +1/+1 against trample until end of turn. So what we're combining here is the expend from raccoons, which expending and a number means when you spend your nth number of mana on spells during a turn, the expend thingy kicks off. This pairs with the mice that have the new keyword Valiant, which is kind of like heroic if you've played any bit of Theros before, except it only triggers once per turn. So when you expend with this card, you can target something else that's got Valiant. So these work very well together. It's neat. Expend is probably the more interesting of the 2 because the expend is kind of just rewarding you for playing the game, and that's always great synergy. Early winter. I sure hope not. It's still summertime as of recording, but I really don't want any early winter. I'm not a fan of the cold. 4 and a black for an instant. You choose one between either exiling target creature or target opponent exiles an enchantment they control. That's kind of expensive, especially since you don't get to choose The enchantment, I would really wish that at this cost you'd be able to choose the enchantment to exile, and honestly, that's even kind of expensive for a creature exile either. That's not a fantastic card. Cash grab! Nice puns. I'm a very big fan of that. 1 and a green for an instant. We've just hit many instants in this pack, I'm noticing. This is just showing the boosted up power of modern sets nowadays, that basically anything playable has to be instant speed. Mill 4 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the cards milled this way into your hand. If you control a squirrel or you returned a squirrel card to your hand this way, you make a food. That's super neat. Obviously this is great with just the squirrels themselves. And if you already control a squirrel, then that's great. If you're playing the squirrel deck and you want to get a squirrel back, then fantastic. This gives you extra bonuses here. The squirrels of this set in particular, their main mechanic is called forage. Abilities allow you to do a forage, and to pay the foraging cost, you either have to sacrifice a food or exile 3 cards from your graveyard. And this allows you to be able to do both of those things potentially. The milling will then fill up your graveyard that you could then use for forage mechanic, or this will create you a food token that you could also use for foraging, and you get a card back out of it in the meantime. So excellent for a squirrel deck, pretty fine even if you want to play it in something that isn't a squirrel deck per se. The Bellowing Crier. Look at this boy. He's ready to just tell you about it. I'm here for it. 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Frog Advisor, that when he enters, you draw a card and then discard a card. That's great. The frogs are all about, as you would expect, they want to bounce themselves either in and out directly or bounce back to your hand to be able to recast, and they've got triggers and effects that care about like when things leave your battlefield that have not died or have been returned or whatever. So this is a neat little target. Draw discard is kind of so it's gonna depend. If you are looking to get things into your graveyard directly, pairs well with the threshold that the rats are looking to do out of this set. But drawing and discard is technically not really like card advantage per se. There's other like cards at mana higher than this one that just straight up draw you a card. So I don't think this would be replacing those, but maybe if you're trying to do graveyard stuff, it's not awful. 3-Tree Mascot. Now this is a really interesting one. 2 colorless mana, I should say, for a 2/1 artifact creature shapeshifter with Changeling. I believe this is the only Changeling in this set. It's just they play around with this a little bit now, that they bring back one-off mechanics on certain random cards, and so this one's really, really cool. 2/1 with Changeling, that you can put a mana into it and add 1 mana of any color, activate only once each turn. So it helps you filter mana into things of other colors as you need them. And for playing limited, especially out of this, I wouldn't call this a commander card per se, but for when building decks of the kindred variety, this can act as any creature type you need it to. So really, really neat. Yeah, I have nothing else to add there. Pond Prophet. Now, here actually is what we were talking about. Instead of the other Bellowing Crier boy, we could play this friend instead. Pond Prophet is 2 hybrid green-blue mana, so meaning this could be cast as either green-green, blue-blue, or green-blue. For a 1/1 Frog Advisor, that when it enters, draw a card. Great, that's card advantage. Comes down nice and cheap, flexible on its casting cost, it's a fantastic target for blinking in and out, and gives you card advantage, if I didn't already say that. Did I say that? I can't remember. Whatever. We love a good Pondy boy. Bone Cash Overseer, a single black mana. Oh, we're into our uncommons now, by the way. I didn't even notice. Black mana for a 1/1 Squirrel Warlock. Squirrel Lock. Thank you for being here. Tap, pay 1 life, draw a card. Activate only if 3 or more cards left your graveyard this turn, or if you've sacrificed a food. The same costs for forage, basically. So you've got this squirrel down. If you've played anything else during the turn that allowed you to forage, this thing can then draw you a card for a life, which is kind of like a very slow activation of like greed. Long term in a commander deck, I suppose if you have ways to constantly get things in and out of your graveyard, we've got like Sir Conrad can do that kind of thing. There's like zombie decks that are able to do that. Being a squirrel though, I don't know. It's interesting. It's ripe for some untap abusing, I can imagine, because the tap, we're not requiring any other forms of mana, so if you can get some kind of engine of some kind where you're drawing cards, paying life, making food, and then sacrificing food, someone bigger brain than me can probably figure that out, but it'd be cool. I'd love to see whoever can try to build that. 3-Tree Scribe. 1 and a green for a 2/3 frog druid that when it or another creature you control leaves the battlefield without dying, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So this is another one of those like payoff cards that we were talking about with the frogs, that their triggers all go off of things exiting the battlefield, most of the time saying without dying. So bounce, hop, ribbit, frogs. This is totally fine, yeah. If you're bouncing one thing in and out, like that frog, the frog one that was drawing cards, either of them, I suppose, you're doing that as just like getting a engine of drawing cards and filtering into your graveyard, and then this guy is seeing all of that happening at the same time, so he's just getting bigger, so the other ones are giving you cards, this one's acting as your combat. It's like, it's really neat. You get all these pieces lined up together, and they're going to start doing a really good synergy engine for you. Eddie Murky. Eddie Merc Crab. 5 and blue for a 5/5 elemental crab with flash. It costs 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. It enters tapped if it's not your turn, and when it enters, you tap up to 2 target creatures. That could be cool, I guess. If you've thrown enough things into your graveyard, this can come down for blue, flash, instant speed. Yeah, it becomes tapped itself, but then you're also tapping down 2 other creatures in the meantime. No stun counters or anything like that, so... not my favorite, but it's... if you like crabs, it's a big crabby boy. Our rare we have is Portent of Calamity. Blue and an X for a sorcery. Reveal the top X cards of your library. For each card type, you may exile a card of that type from among them. Put the rest into your graveyard. You may cast a spell from among the exiled cards without paying its mana cost if you exiled 4 or more cards this way. Then put the rest of the exiled cards into your hand. So I haven't read this card yet before. That was the first time reading it. That is certainly a wall of text that says put 3 cards into your hand. Like, blue X draw spells are fine, I suppose, if you need a big, so the way this is worded out is you go X cards in, you exile up to 1 each for each of the card types that exist, and if you can exile up to 4 or more, you get to have 1 of those cards castable for free, and then everything else goes into your hand. The problem with this then is, let's say you do an X of 5 and it flips 4 lands and a creature, then you get 2 cards into your hand and nothing cast for free, and everything else goes to your bin. Like, this is not great, I'll be honest. I guess gives you a way to cast something for free out of your library if you were to sink, say, infinite mana into this, and technically it's not drawing cards, so you could technically set this at like X infinite or however much mana you've generated, and then it flips your whole library, choose from amongst all the permanents, cast 1 thing for free, say Thassa's Oracle or Laboratory Maniac or something like that. So there's potential for it to kind of pop off if you need to, but I think you really kind of have to work into it. The rest of our pack here is we have a full art basic land. The swamp, it looks like this is the fall season, it looks like, kind of, with like the browns and whatever. I really like the seasons idea that the basic lands of this set do. I really don't like that some of the different varieties are at a higher rarity than others. They should be an even 25% split across all 4 seasons. That's kind of silly that they made some of the season variants more rare than others. And then a foil in the pack, Agate, one of those words. Agate Assault. 2 and a red for a sorcery. You choose one. It either deals 4 damage to target creature. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead, or you exile target artifact. Modal spells are great. Anything that gives you flexibility, though. Sorcery is a big killer on this, I'd say, because this kind of mana is a lot, especially in the early game, to just leave, spend your whole turn doing just this, at least for Commander anyway. This is perfectly fine for Draft or Limited or anything like that. Yeah, I would not be cutting things like Abrade for stuff like this. It's neat that it exiles the creature, but it's okay. I don't normally show these kind of things off here, but check this out here. We've got a art card with the gold stamp signature at the bottom for the animal version. I believe this is Elspeth's Son's Champion? Yep, Elspeth's Son's Champion. So these are really cool. I mean, now with the new style of Play Booster, art cards in specific have become a bit more rare in the packs, and then especially these ones that have the gold stamp on them. So it wouldn't necessarily be a value pickup per se, but it's really cool that you can sometimes just pick up nice little bonuses like these out of packs. So here's the thing here. I have not really been an outstanding big fan of this set, all things considered. It's certainly really, really cool for anyone who has been interested or is going to be interested in trying to build any of these types of Kindred-style decks with the creature types that are involved in this set. For me personally, though, and I made this clear when we did our podcast episode talking about top cards from the set, both from Commander and from the main set as well, it's fine for, general purpose strategies. There's great things to be had in here, don't get me wrong, and again, all of you players who are going to be playing Kindred-style decks are going to be having a real treat here, but looking at things like these, it's a little tricky for me to decide, what I personally would play. Probably my number one out of this pack, as boring as it kind of is, probably would be the Pawn Prophet. Just a little guy that is a good blink target that would allow you to just keep your hand filled, What better way to capitalize on having as much card advantage as possible than playing good blink targets that draw you cards? I'm a big fan of those. That would probably be my number one pick out of here. Cash Grab is also cool because, again, you can work it even outside of a squirrel deck, that it just mills you some cards into your graveyard, and then it gives you one of those back into your hand if you are looking to fill your graveyard for any reason. Obviously, if you are playing squirrels or you happen to pick up a squirrel, I know, not every Golgari sacrifice deck plays Chatterfang, but every once in a while you get those tokens aristocrat style things that play Chatterfang just in the 99, and surprise value there if you just happen to pick him up. Apart from that, though, we had our brief talk about Runaway together. It's very cool in a multiplayer format that you can pick multiple players and bounce their things away. And, I mean, Changelings are cool. Changelings always have some decent value. This obviously wouldn't be replacing anything like Changeling Outcast, because that card is fantastic, but if you just need something else as filler, it does that, That's what Changelings are great at doing. They act as all creature types everywhere, so there's got to be something cool that you could do with that. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you've enjoyed this pack of Bloomburrow, and I'll see you again soon for the next episode of Pack It In.